Welcome to York Plasterers, A&B Plasterers York, your trusted service since 1962.
York Plasterers, A&B Plastering York, on how to plaster a ceiling for a DIYer. Okay, York Plasterers, A&B Plastering, we know plastering a ceiling, especially a large ceiling, is one of the harder challenges we as trained plasterers face. While it's not impossible to do for the DIYer, it is something I would suggest to only really try after you've plastered some walls and got used to picking up plaster onto your board and spreading it without dropping it all over the place. It needs to be a perfectly smooth finish as well, because otherwise the ceiling plastered badly is not very forgiving. You'll end up with a sunlight or the room light just highlighting every lump and bump that you've left behind by not doing it correctly. So, how to actually plaster a ceiling. So this is how you do it, and the tools you will need. I've put some links to tools in the description, but you can buy, but don't buy cheap ones. There's a reason they are cheap. It's hard enough with good tools, let alone crap ones. You will need a hawk and trowel, dry mix or ready mix plaster. Most ready mix plaster is really crap, but I have put one for DIYs in the description, which is passable for small areas on the ceiling, that's all. Now you can mix by hand, but a power mix is much quicker and easier, but if it's a one-off job it's quite costly, but I have put a reasonably priced one in the description. Right, scrim or jointing tape. If it's onto new plasterboard ceiling, you will need them obviously over the joints. A good quality paintbrush. This is to splash and clean your tools and everything. You may find it easier with a water sprayer to use than throwing water with your brush, because you get it all over the place. Okay, when plastering, make sure all your tools are spotlessly clean though. This is absolutely essential, and don't have residue left on all the tools to set from a previous plastering work you've done. Okay, the preparation. Make sure the ceiling is cleaned using a sweeping brush, scrapers, what have you. If you're going onto an old ceiling that you're re-skimming over, get all the old loose flakes off, things like this. It's got to be absolutely perfect. Now, obviously, if it's plasterboard, then you cover your joints with the jointing tape. Right, number two, you mix the plaster. If you're mixing yourself, my recommendation would be to use multi-finish plaster. It's a lot more forgiving for the DIYer. It allows a bit more time to work with. You can get this from all the usual places, DIY, builders, merchants, etc. I'll put a link in the description for the type of plaster to get as well if you wanted to go that route. Right, ready mix plaster. Now I've put a link for some ready mix in the description, but you'll never get the finish using mixed plaster already mixed in a tub. Plus it will cost a lot to do any large amount of work. Careful, it can be unforgiving and dries out really quickly once it starts. This ready mixed plaster does. So it's good for small patches around the home. Quite challenging, more than challenging, trying to do a big ceiling, I can assure you. Right, apply the plaster. Now to begin, get a small amount of mixed plaster from your hawk board, then put it to the ceiling using the plastering trowel. Use large sweeping strokes with the trowel and angle it slightly from the ceiling. Now once you've covered the whole ceiling, and it doesn't matter where you start, but start in a comfortable place for you, whichever handed you are, left or right handed, then you'll find, going from left to right, across, what have you. Anyway, go over the surface with your clean trowel once you've actually applied the first coat. Use a spray bottle if you find it easier than throwing water on from the brush. Now, as a York plasterer with over 35 years experience, we would apply 2 coats of plaster normally. I know from the disaster DIYers that have called me in to put things right, it's best to work with just 1 coat, as speed is of the essence, and quite frankly a learned skill over a period of time. Okay, finally, using a small damp brush, polish off the edges and corners. Allow to fully dry before you paint or paper, usually 1 or 2 days, but don't paint on any ceiling if it still appears damp, because it'll flake off and look awful in a short period of time. I'm going to show you. Now, can a DIY plasterer actually plaster a ceiling to a good level? Plaster a ceiling is not that easy, but it can be done by a competent DIYer. plastering, to reiterate, my advice would be to practice plastering on a wall or a patch of wall first. Get used to picking up plaster and spreading without dropping all over the place. If all else fails and you don't feel like tackling the job and you need a York plasterer, give us a call here at York Plasterers, A&B Plaster in York, and we'd be happy to give you a quote. But have a go if you feel confident. If not, give us a call. Okay, thanks for your time. Bye now.